funny, I actually have a friend, I'm doing a talk in Las Vegas in October for a private equity company, and a friend is setting up, he's like, I'm going to get you pyrotechnics. He's just very excited to get pyrotechnics for me. Like, okay, I'll take it. Now, if you haven't heard of, so Aaron Ross, I worked at Salesforce.com a long time ago, and Salesforce.com was about 25 million in revenue and 150 people. And at Salesforce, I created an outbound sales process that helped double their growth rate in certain markets, right? So it helped create predictable revenue. And that really started the journey of me being fascinated by sort of how do you create predictable growth? How do you kind of engineer growth? Because before at Salesforce, I had started a company and raised money, but it failed. So I went to Salesforce to learn sales. Where better to learn sales and selling at Salesforce? And in running this sales team, like I didn't want to have to scramble month to month and understand was I going to hit my number or not. So there's like fascination with predictable growth and predictable revenue. So that led to this book, Predictable Revenue, in 2011. In 2016, the sequel, From Impossible to Inevitable, was actually just came out with a second edition a couple months ago. In fact, we have some, they're not here, but we have some books to give away as a signing soon, afterwards. And a separate fun fact is that I've got 9 going on 10 kids. So not something you see every day, but 2 from my wife's prior marriage. We've had 3 bio kids together. We've adopted some. And in fact, I'm actually giving another talk at 5 in the Dive-In Dome on building a $5 million business while having 10 kids, which would be interesting. So today I want to focus again on how do you create predictable revenue, how do you engineer growth? And then I've been fascinated really I'm an engineer, I think, by nature. How do you create repeatable, there's all these repeatable systems and patterns that you see in companies. Why they grow, why they don't grow. How do you increase growth? Why does it stall? Why does it plateau? How do you ignite growth? So here's just some sample topics, right? How Sagemount triples the growth of valuation of companies it invests in, how Twilio nailed a $1 billion niche, and uncommon practices of hypergrowth CMOs. But really there's this Uber trend that we see. And it's this information explosion, right? There's just too many choices for everybody. There's too many apps, too many channels, too much content, and everyone's overwhelmed. So it's not just your buyers, it's also your salespeople. Right? Everyone's just like, oh, what do I choose? There was, I think, 500 sales apps and 500 marketing apps 5 years ago. Now there's 5,000 of each. In 5 more years, there might be 50,000 of each. Right? And this overwhelm is just something that everyone deals with. So if there's really kind of like a key word from the books or from today, or a lot of this key word in countering this trend that customers and your own people are dealing with is really about focus. So as we go through these reasons that revenue plateaus and what to do about it, focus is really what ties a lot of this together in this overwhelming, too busy, kind of just confused world. So the reasons revenue tends to stall and stutter is because, first, companies want to skip a step, and I'll get into all these. You don't have enough sales roles. You really don't have the right insights or metrics around your lead generation. These customer blind spots, and the last is the sales and marketing friction. So let's talk about these and what to do about them. Skipping a step, what does that mean? Well, okay, great. So you get a product. People start buying it, and suddenly there's this like impatience to just sell more of it because we want to grow. And the skip that companies often step is just like you had a time to test and find out your product or service, you need to go through that same process to find your repeatable sales and marketing process. And when you try to skip that step, like this way to create predictable revenue, you can't grow. So by trying to go from product market fit to scale, you're just shooting yourself in the foot. It's like taking 2 steps forward, 3 steps backward, because you're actually wasting your time and your money. Rather than trying to take it a little more slowly and get your sales and process aligned so you can create some predictable results. And one other thing is this impatience that we all see, right? We're surrounded by stories of people's success. at work and in life. People selling their company, people raising money, people getting married, people losing weight, right? In social media, we're surrounded by success. And as entrepreneurs, which I think most of you either are or want to be in some way, whether you call yourself that or you want to be entrepreneurial, by nature, you're dealing with problems all the time. An entrepreneur is solving problems. You're kind of in the muck, in the mud all day. So you end up with this disconnect between, wow, I'm dealing with things that don't work all day, but everyone else is crushing it. And it's not true. So you have to remind yourself that you're on the right path, you're not missing out, you're not doing anything wrong, you just need to keep focusing on what you need to do to make it work. And it can take a lot longer, it takes years longer than you want. It can be 5 or 10 years to exit, right? It could take 2 years to know if you've even got something that's working. So Sagemount, I mentioned, is a $2 billion private equity company in the States. They invest in companies, probably $10 to $150 million. And what they've seen is that most of the increase in valuation from companies comes from growing their organic sales and marketing, from taking what they've already got and growing it faster, right? Not from combining companies or other changes. So their playbook was really these 4 things, right? Specialized sales roles, increase lead gen, and they love outbound prospecting, but increase lead gen, nail a niche, and that revenue team alignment. And for their math, they say if we can grow up companies, and this is a SaaS company, by $1 million in revenue, we'll see a $12 million valuation. So all this investment in growing sales and marketing is like their top priority because it's so vital. So an example is they had this company they invested in, and this company was IT services. It had 6 salespeople doing everything, and they were getting some leads from partners and inbound, a little bit here and there, and Sagemount wanted to triple their growth rate. So their focus is, hey, let's invest in this company, and today in this overwhelm, it's so easy to measure too many metrics. They focus on 3 major things, right? It's just more good meetings, more proposals, more customers. Right? Now these 3 may not be the 3 for you, but it's like fewer, more important metrics rather than getting lost in the clutter of all the analysis you can do. So we mentioned step 1, specialize your sales teams. Right? This is probably the number 1 most important thing if you have salespeople, even one salesperson, is to focus their time. Because salespeople, again, just like everyone else, are trying to do too many things and they're juggling too much, and so they're not doing anything really, really well. When you can specialize your sales teams, just like a sports team. I mean, you don't have a soccer team where the coach says, all right, everybody, go out and everybody attack and everybody defend. Right? That doesn't make any sense. You've got attackers, midfield, defenders, goalie. But that's not the standard in the way that we design sales teams yet, although it should be. So typically, as you start to get a few people, even 2, 3, 4 people, you don't wait till you've got 10. If you have inbound or marketing leads, you've got this inbound role, often called SDR. There's many names, but they're responding to website leads. The outbound role is outbound prospecting, right? Dedicated 100% to going to find new customers and get meetings with them. The new business role is people signing up new customers, and then once the customer's signed, there's different teams that could do renewals, subscriptions, services, customer success, whatever. Okay, you have to specialize this way, not with these boxes, but in the sense of focus. More sales roles so people can do fewer things better. And if you only have one person, you can't do this yet, but you can specialize their time, right? If it's a salesperson who's not prospecting, they can use time blocks on their calendar. So they get that focused time for things. Or if you're the entrepreneur who's selling and you feel like you can't talk to your customers enough, like just block out the time. So that's how you start, is that focused time. So if you have this, if this is something that's not new to you, a common couple mistakes is companies that don't specialize enough. They still have this junior, often called SDR, BDR role, doing inbound lead generation, inbound lead qualification, outbound prospecting, but they've got the same people doing the same roles, doing both inbound and out. So you can't juggle those. You can't have one person doing both. Or again, you've got salespeople that are signing new customers and managing them. basically, as soon as a salesperson is spending more than 20% of their time on non-new business things, you need to start to look at breaking that out to a separate role. Okay? And again, this principle makes everything else easier because when people are doing fewer things better and they're expert at this, again, any kind of changes around, if you're giving them more leads, if you're trying to change process, it just makes everything else easier. So this is really often the place to start. The second step is ramping lead generation. And a lot of that comes from being more insightful about the leads you're getting, right? I don't know, there's so many companies now that are like, if I just build this great product, people are going to want to buy it, right? I'm sure there's some of you here. And I mean, it happens often enough, right? There's enough stories on social media that, okay, it happens, but it's so rare, in terms of being able to have people come in and buy it and build a profitable business off this and not having to sell. And the thing is, lead generation is your lever for growth. Like, that is the thing that will drive growth. Predictable lead generation. It's not hiring more salespeople. It's not, maybe not even your product, although the product can generate leads. It's lead generation. So the thing with lead generation is you can't really grow unless you've got accurate metrics around your leads and understand, where did the good ones come from? How do I get more of them? And honestly, almost every dashboard or metric I've seen around lead generation lies in the sense that it's inaccurate or off or misleading. So typically, if you have a business and you actually are getting leads, the first step is to try to understand them better so you can know where to get more of them. Now, there's these three kinds of leads: seeds, nets, and spears. Right? And it's important to know which one is the best fit for you. Seeds really is that word of mouth marketing. Customers who refer you to other customers. Right? Those are hard to grow. The best kinds are hard to grow. Nets is like you're casting a wide net, right? Content marketing, you're getting a lot of leads, hopefully, but the number of them of good ones is lower. And spears is outbound prospecting, right? That's the team I created at Salesforce, and I think I'm probably most known for it because of the predictable revenue book. But each one of these have their pros and cons, and you need to understand for your business which one is the right one for you. And you usually start by looking at which ones have worked best for you first. Because your starting point is, historically, what's worked best? Let's do more of that. You should start rather than saying, oh, we've already been doing some outbound. We've been doing some inbound, so let's just add outbound. Right? You want to double down first on what's been working best. A little bit about outbound is that there's so much on the blogosphere. And I don't know, is anyone here like either in outbound, fans of outbound, read about outbound? Right, a bunch. And there's all these constant blog posts around the right email script, the right phone script. It's all these tactics. AI, this, list building, but really that's not about all these things. Because ultimately, what it matters is how that rolls up to your dashboard, is the metrics on what's working, what's not working. So again, it's so tempting to think, oh, if I just get the right email template, that'll fix everything. But a lot of those tactics, which are really important, distract people from what's really the most important things, understanding what's working, what's not, through those metrics. And especially in outbound, it's very hard to get a clear outbound dashboard because there's a much more subjectivity in outbound around prospectors who pass over appointments and whether they're qualified or not. And does the information get entered accurately or not? But if you're outbound, if your dashboard isn't fixed, it's like, this is our family car, by the way, right? It's a Sprinter, 12-person passenger van. And we're in the process of moving the family to Edinburgh. And we won't be able to take this car, which I'm bummed about, I'm sad about, because I love this car. You can stand up in it, it's great. It's basically like a FedEx van. And in the States, FedEx uses these types of vans the most. But wrong side of the street, and in England, legally, I wouldn't be able to drive this because it's 12 seats, and I can only drive up to a 9-seater with a regular license. So there you go. But in terms of knowing with a car, it's the same thing. If you don't if your speedometer's off, or if your Google Maps is off, and you don't know where you are exactly, how are you going to get to the place you want to go to? So likewise, with outbound funnels, making it accurate is just as important as getting more of what's in it. This is a basic one. This image is from the Predictable Revenue book. But essentially, you're looking at the classic metrics. Number one, activities. How many calls, emails? Okay, great. But then what kinds of results are those leading to? And by the way, the principle of a funnel can work almost in any place in your business, but the funnel might change. You can probably use funnels with engineering, right? Feature requests to get whittled down to this, that, and the other. Hiring is funnels. Marketing funnels. So the funnel in business you can use in so many places, but the principle is you're trying to break down the steps into what step leads to the next step and what metrics make sense and what seems to be fair. So I think pretty commonly, if you have an outbound function, you'll have number one, hopefully number two, how many emails are they sending, how many calls are they making, and what are we getting from that? Are we getting responses? But where people start to miss out is number three, which is what's that key metric? And this is true whether it's an outbound or inbound, although there is some variety in how you measure and you log things. But in outbound especially, what you're looking for is the number of qualified, audited opportunities. What's really entering in the sales pipeline. That's the real stuff. So, again, going back to igniting growth, common mistake. Company spends more on marketing or in some sort of lead generation. They get a bunch more leads of some kind. 6 months goes by. They're like, oh, we got all these leads and nothing closes. Why? Well, because it's easy to generate types of leads that aren't a good fit. And you don't know if they're going to be a good fit or not unless you're sort of watching them go through the pipeline to understand, we're getting more leads, but are they the right type? So that quality metric is the most important and most undervalued metric typically in funnels, in lead generation funnels. And in outbound, you especially need to audit those opportunities for consistency and accuracy. So then we come to number four. This term pipeline creation rate really is like if you have a business, your best indicator of future revenue is the amount of, at least in B2B, the amount of qualified pipeline you're creating per month. If that's growing, you're going to grow revenue. If it's not growing, you're not going to grow. And that pipeline creation rate is really the amount of qualified pipeline created per month. Again, is it growing or sinking? So Zora is a company. In the States, they're about $150, $200 million revenue company. They sell subscription management billing software. And what's interesting is a lot of their customers might take 1 or 2 or 3 years to decide to buy or not. So I thought there was a really interesting case study. But this is a sample outbound funnel for Zora, right, where they have their BDRs, right, these prospectors that are adding, every month adding new account plans or sort of mapping out accounts. They are adding contacts, they're making their calls, emails, and they're working to generate a certain number of meetings with customers per month. So we call them like, are we a fit meetings? These 16, say, is there something here or not? Which then leads to more sort of in-depth sales meetings, then technical demonstrations, and hopefully a customer. And the principle here is if you can create a funnel, again, this is outbound, but might be some other kind of lead generation, inbound customer success. But when you can create predictable results this way through lead generation, you'll be able to create predictable revenue. You'll be able to control how your growth ignites or reignites. Having said that, all right, you've been working on creating leads. You've been trying to figure that out, and it's not working. Why not? You've been spending money on online marketing or maybe outbound prospecting or going to events, and you're just not getting what you expect. The most common problem, this is the most common problem, not the simplest one to fix or start with, but the most common problem that block companies from growing is they haven't nailed a niche. Right? So I want to talk about how Twilio nailed a $1 billion niche by walking in its customers' shoes. Nailing a niche means really like you know who your best customers are. You know who needs you. You know who you're nice to have. And you know how to speak to them in their language. right? We all know we all gotta have this product speak. Oh, I'm building an AI platform to help enhance social media. Okay, but what does that mean to customers? They don't know. Now, remember, they're overwhelmed. So unless you make it really simple for them to understand who you are, what you can do for them, they're just not gonna. They're gonna ignore you. Now, Twilio is, I mentioned, the $600 million company, communications API platform company. And this, I don't know, like Uber uses them to send their text messages and to make phone calls. Okay, so they get embedded in other people's technology to enable communications. So I love their story because they have a platform, an API platform, and that can be really hard to sell to people. Because like, what do you do? It's like basically I'm selling boxes of Legos. What do you want to build? And they're like, I don't know. What can I build with this? And they're like, I don't know. So it's hard to sell that. At least now they're a little further along. But what Twilio did that was really amazing was like the ways they would get their people out of their sort of mental cubes and really to learn how their customers think. So here's three of my favorites, right? They actually literally have their customers walk on their shoes where they just offer to customers, hey, give us your old shoes. And if you give us your old shoes, we'll give you a new pair of Twilio branded Converse Chucks with a Twilio logo. And they hang their customer shoes in their offices as a reminder to think like their customer. But even better is they make all their employees, including lawyers and human resources people, so Twilio, it's like engineers use it to code applications. They actually have every single employee build an application as part of their onboarding. They have to build a Twilio application, right? So they have this experience of at least being like their customer for a bit. And the third one is get customer feedback before you build. And we talk about it, but one of the ways they do it is as an API company, they document their APIs. And then so they can actually give their documentation to customers and have them read through it before they build anything. So the customers can look at the documentation, this is confusing and this isn't. And Twilio can go through that some number of times before they actually even start coding, right? It's a lot more efficient to fix a problem before it's into a product. So here's a little more tactical example. There's a company called Kemberton that we helped with their outbound process. And speaking like their customer, it went from, they had this question, they sell to hospitals. Who's in charge of receivables? Well, there's a lot of types of receivables there. So when they switched, they did some interviews, got into their customers' heads. When they switched to who handles patient cash, it was instantly obvious who they should be routed to those companies. All right? So you're trying to think like your customer, so you can speak like them and know who to talk to. I'm going to skip through this. Whoops. Sorry. There we go. Just to wrap up, it's about mindset, having the patience and persistence and determination to go through this as it takes years longer than you want. Remember, add more sales roles. That's really the place to start. Ramp lead gen by getting insightful about what's worked and what hasn't yet. Nail a niche by just really getting to learn how to read your customers' minds and think like they think. And as I mentioned, this new book, we've got some we'll announce here. So maybe you can tell me we're going to do it. Back here. Oh, there you go.
Huge round of applause, please. Whoop, whoop.
Thank you.